Listen carefully, because what you are feeling right now is not confusion, it is not coincidence, and it is not chaos. What you are sensing in your spirit, what has been shifting quietly around you, what has made familiar things feel uncomfortable and predictable, patterns begin to crack. This is the moment before God disturbs your atmosphere. God does not disturb without purpose. God does not shake what He does not intend to shift. And God never interrupts your comfort unless He is about to introduce you to a higher level of destiny. That comfort could never sustain. Some of you have been asking why the peace you once felt no longer settles the way it used to. You have prayed the same prayers, spoken the same words, followed the same routines, yet something inside you has been restless. That restlessness is not rebellion. It is not weakness, it is not failure, it is the signal that God is about to move in ways that will not fit inside the old atmosphere you have been living in. When God prepares to elevate a life, He first disrupts the environment that kept that life small. God is not intimidated by your order. God is not impressed by your systems. God is not limited by what you have carefully arranged to feel safe. When God decides to act, He moves beyond your structure and challenges your assumptions. He disturbs conversations. He disrupts expectations. He rearranges relationships. He shifts timing. He allows pressure to rise so that what is hidden inside you can finally surface. God knows that comfort preserves the familiar, but disturbance reveals the powerful. You see, many people say they want change, but they resist disturbance. They pray for growth, but they reject disruption. They ask God to expand their influence, yet they cling to atmospheres that cannot sustain expansion. God, in His wisdom, understands that the same environment that protected you yesterday may imprison you tomorrow. That is why He disturbs before He delivers. He shakes before He establishes. He unsettles before He positions. Right now, God is touching the atmosphere of your life. The tone of your days is changing. The weight of your thoughts is shifting. What once excited you no longer satisfies you, and what once intimidated you no longer holds the same power. This is not loss, this is preparation. God disturbs the atmosphere when He is about to speak a new word over your future, and that word requires space to manifest. Some of you are noticing that doors you relied on are closing without explanation. Opportunities you expected are no longer responding. People who once understood you suddenly misunderstand you. This is not rejection. This is redirection. God knows that if He leaves certain doors open, you will keep walking into rooms that limit your assignment. So He closes them not to punish you, but to protect what He placed inside you. God disturbs the atmosphere because He refuses to allow His purpose in you to suffocate under familiarity. Familiar voices can drown out divine instruction. Familiar patterns can silence divine urgency. Familiar comfort can delay divine timing. When God wants to awaken something deeper, He allows the noise to increase until you are forced to listen more closely to Him. There are moments when God's silence is louder than words. There are seasons when God does not explain, because explanation would keep you dependent on logic instead of trust. When God disturbs your atmosphere, He is teaching you to recognize His presence beyond feelings and circumstances. He is training you to walk by conviction rather than convenience. Some of you are experiencing emotional turbulence. Your joy feels challenged. Your patience feels tested. Your faith feels stretched. This does not mean God has stepped away. It means God has stepped closer. God's nearness often feels uncomfortable because it exposes what no longer aligns with Him. His presence highlights compromises you ignored. His light reveals habits you tolerated. His truth confronts fears you avoided. God disturbs atmospheres to cleanse them. He disrupts environments to purify them. He shakes foundations to see what is real. Anything that cannot survive the shaking was never meant to remain. God is not destroying your life. He is removing what cannot go where He is taking you. Understand this clearly. God does not disturb to confuse you, but confusion can happen when you resist the shift. When you cling to the old while God is calling you forward, tension arises. That tension is not a sign to retreat, it is an invitation to surrender. The faster you release what God is disturbing, the sooner clarity will come. There are people listening right now who have been blaming themselves for the discomfort they feel. You have been saying, "What is wrong with me?" Nothing is wrong with you. What is happening is that God is enlarging your capacity, and enlargement requires pressure. Expansion always feels tight before it feels free. Growth always feels heavy before it feels powerful. God is disturbing your atmosphere because He is about to change your language. You will no longer speak from fear, but from authority. You will no longer react from insecurity, but respond from wisdom. You will no longer pray small prayers shaped by past disappointments, but bold prayers shaped by divine promise. But before your words change, your atmosphere must change. When God disturbs an atmosphere, He exposes false peace. Not every calm place is a blessed place. Some calm environments are only quiet because nothing is growing there. God won't. Rather give you holy turbulence than silent stagnation. He would rather stretch you than soothe you. He would rather awaken you than comfort you into complacency. You may not recognize it yet, but the very things that feel like interruptions are actually invitations. That unexpected delay is an invitation to trust. That uncomfortable conversation is an invitation to maturity. That sudden loss of control is an invitation to dependence on God rather than on systems you built to feel secure. God disturbs atmospheres to remind you that He is the source, not the setting. He is not confined to routines, locations, or methods. When you begin to depend more on the atmosphere than on God, He changes the atmosphere so you will return to Him. Some of you are about to experience a shift in how you see yourself. God is disturbing the atmosphere of your identity. You can no longer shrink to fit places that were never designed to hold your calling. You can no longer explain away your purpose to make others comfortable. God is calling you to stand with clarity, even if it makes the room uneasy. When God disturbs your atmosphere, He also disturbs your enemy's expectations. They are counting on you to remain predictable. They are comfortable with the version of you that doubts, hesitates, and delays. But God is awakening a version of you that moves with conviction, speaks with authority, and stands without apology. Do not be afraid of the disturbance. Fear only comes when you misunderstand. Stand the intention behind the shaking. God's intention is not to embarrass you, it is to elevate you, not to break you, to build you, not to scatter you, to align you. The atmosphere is changing because God is about to introduce clarity where there was confusion, strength where there was weakness, and direction where there was wandering. What feels unstable now will soon feel established. What feels loud now will soon feel ordered. What feels uncertain now will soon feel undeniable. When God disturbs an atmosphere, He is also challenging the limits you placed on what He can do. Many people believe in God, but they quietly limit Him by their expectations. They say God is powerful, yet they plan as if He will not intervene. They say God is faithful, yet they prepare for disappointment more than for fulfillment. So God disturbs the atmosphere to break those invisible ceilings. He allows situations that logic cannot fix so that faith must rise. He creates moments where human strength is insufficient so that divine strength becomes undeniable. This is why the disturbance feels personal. God is not just shifting circumstances, He is reshaping your perception. He is teaching you to see beyond what is visible. Faith is not denial of reality, it is alignment with a higher reality. When God disturbs your atmosphere, He is inviting you to agree with His perspective instead of surrendering to appearances. Some of you are walking through seasons where your prayers feel delayed, not denied. The timing feels uncomfortable, stretched, uncertain. But understand this, God's delays are never empty. They are loaded with preparation. God is not slow, He is precise. He knows exactly when the atmosphere is ready for what He intends to release. If He moves too early, the blessing becomes a burden. If He moves too late, the opportunity expires. So He disturbs first, aligns second, and releases third. God disturbs atmospheres to separate noise from voice. In peaceful seasons, everything sounds acceptable. Advice feels wise, opinions feel helpful, and emotions feel trustworthy. But when God shakes the environment, only what is grounded in truth remains steady. Only His voice carries clarity. Only His direction produces peace that does not depend on circumstances. There are people listening who are discovering that certain relationships cannot survive this shift. This is painful, but it is purposeful. God does not remove people to hurt you. He removes them to protect alignment. Some connections were seasonal, not eternal. Some voices were helpful for where you were, but harmful for where you are going. God disturbs the atmosphere so that attachments that limit growth naturally loosen. You are not losing support, you are gaining direction. You are not being isolated, you are being refined. God often pulls you away from the crowd so He can speak without interference. Silence in this season is not abandonment, it is intimacy. God speaks most clearly when distractions are stripped away. When God disturbs your atmosphere, He also exposes inner resistance. You begin to notice where you have been negotiating obedience, where you delayed action, where you settled for partial alignment. God's disturbance brings these areas to the surface not to condemn you, but to correct you. Correction is not rejection, it is proof of investment. God is preparing you for responsibility, not just reward. Elevation without preparation creates collapse. Visibility without maturity creates pressure. Influence without wisdom creates damage. So God disturbs the atmosphere to deepen your roots before He lifts your branches. He strengthens your character before He expands your platform. Some of you are being trained to trust God beyond outcomes, to worship without evidence, to obey without applause, to stand without validation. God is shifting you from transactional faith to transformational faith. A faith that does not depend on what you receive, but on who God is. Atmospheric disturbance also awakens discernment. You begin to sense what aligns with God and what only imitates alignment. You stop being impressed by appearance and become attentive to substance. You stop chasing what looks successful and begin pursuing what is faithful. This is growth. This is maturity. This is God refining your vision. There are moments when God will disturb your emotional atmosphere. He allows tears, questions, and moments of weakness not to break you, but to humanize you. Strength. GTH that has never cried is fragile. Faith that has never been tested is shallow. God allows emotional shaking so that your trust in Him becomes deeper than your confidence in yourself. Do not rush this season. Do not compare your process to someone else's outcome. God tailors disturbance to destiny. What you need shaken may be different from what another needs shaken. God knows exactly what to touch, when to touch it, and how much pressure to apply. He is not guessing, He is intentional. God disturbs atmospheres to activate courage. When familiar support is removed, courage must rise. When predictable patterns break, boldness is required. God is teaching you to move even when certainty is absent. This is not recklessness, it is trust. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is obedience in the presence of fear. You are learning to walk without guarantees, relying not on signs but on conviction. This is where faith becomes real. This is where dependence shifts from emotions to truth. God is forming a resilience in you that cannot be shaken by circumstances because it is anchored in Him. Some of you will soon realize that the disturbance was the answer to prayers you prayed long ago. You asked God to change you, to use you, to grow you, to guide you. This is how He does it. Transformation is rarely gentle. It is holy disruption that leads to lasting change. God is also disturbing your atmosphere to teach you patience with process. You cannot microwave destiny. You cannot push refinement. You cannot skip development. God values depth over speed. He is more interested in who you become than how fast you arrive. As the atmosphere shifts, your sensitivity to God will increase. You will recognize His prompting more clearly. You will respond quicker. You will hesitate less. The disturbance sharpens your awareness. It trains your spirit to listen and respond without delay. You may not feel strong right now, but strength is being built. You may not feel confident right now, but clarity is forming. You may not feel peaceful right now, but peace is being redefined. Peace is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of trust. God disturbs atmospheres to reposition people. Where you stand now may not support where you are going. God adjusts your placement so your future can unfold without resistance. Alignment often requires movement, and movement often feels unstable at first. This season is teaching you to let go without resentment, to release without bitterness, to move forward without carrying what God asked you to leave behind. What you release in obedience, God replaces with purpose. The disturbance will not last forever. God does not keep environments unstable longer than necessary. Once the shift is complete, stability returns at a higher level. What comes after the shaking is stronger, clearer, and more aligned than what existed before. Remain faithful in uncertainty. Remain obedient in discomfort. Remain humble in transition. God is watching how you respond to the disturbance, because your response determines your readiness for what comes next. The atmosphere is still moving. God is still working. And even now, unseen alignment is taking place. What feels unsettled is being arranged. What feels delayed is being prepared. What feels heavy is producing endurance. God disturbs atmospheres not to leave you in chaos, but to lead you into purpose. And when this season passes, you will not only see the change around you, you will recognize the transformation within you. There is a moment when the disturbance reaches a peak, when you feel as if everything familiar has been rearranged at once. This is the point where many people panic, but this is also the point where God is closest. God does His deepest work when your ability to control outcomes is removed. Control creates the illusion of security, but surrender creates true stability. When God disturbs the atmosphere, He is not stripping you of safety, He is stripping you of false confidence so you can rest in Him alone. In this season, God is teaching you to trust His nature, not just His actions. It is easy to believe when prayers are answered quickly. It is easy to worship when doors open smoothly, but faith is forged when you trust God's character even when His methods confuse you. God is consistent even when circumstances are not. He is faithful even when the path feels unclear. He is present even when the environment feels unfamiliar. Some of you are discovering that God is disturbing your mental atmosphere. Thoughts you once entertained no longer feel comfortable. Mindsets you once accepted are now challenged. God is renewing your inner language. He is uprooting fear-based thinking and replacing it with purpose-driven awareness. This internal shift is just as important as any external breakthrough. A transformed mind can sustain blessings that an unchanged mind would sabotage. God disturbs atmospheres to awaken responsibility. He is calling you to take ownership of what He has entrusted to you. Not to blame circumstances, not to wait for perfect conditions, but to move with wisdom and faith. When God shifts the environment, He is inviting you to rise to the level of the moment. You are not behind, you are being positioned. There are times when God allows uncertainty so that humility can grow. Certainty can make people rigid, but uncertainty keeps hearts open. In this openness, God pours wisdom. He teaches discernment. He trains patience. He sharpens hearing. The disturbance humbles you so that pride does not corrupt what God is about to release. God is also exposing where your identity was tied to roles, achievements, or recognition. When those things are shaken, you are forced to ask deeper questions about who you are and why you exist. God wants your identity anchored in Him, not in what you do. When your sense of worth comes from God, no disturbance can diminish you. Some of you are being prepared for leadership and ways you did not expect. God does not prepare leaders by giving them comfort. He prepares them by giving them responsibility under pressure. Leadership requires clarity in chaos, calm in uncertainty, and conviction when answers are incomplete. God is shaping these qualities in you now. Do not misinterpret the resistance you feel. Resistance often means you are moving in the right direction. Growth disrupts comfort. Truth challenges habits. Purpose confronts excuses. God allows resistance to strengthen your resolve and refine your focus. In this shifting atmosphere, God is also restoring your sensitivity to what truly matters. Superficial desires lose their grip. Temporary distractions lose their appeal. You begin to hunger for meaning, alignment, and depth. This hunger is not emptiness, it is readiness. God fills what He first awakens. God disturbs the atmosphere to realign your priorities. Time becomes valuable. Energy becomes intentional. Relationships become meaningful. You stop scattering your focus and start investing it. This alignment brings peace even before circumstances change. Some of you are learning that God's provision does not always arrive the way you imagined. Sometimes provision comes as strength to endure rather than immediate relief. Sometimes it comes as wisdom rather than resources. Sometimes it comes as restraint rather than abundance. God provides exactly what the season requires, not what comfort demands. As the atmosphere shifts, your discernment sharpens. You sense when to speak and when to remain silent. You recognize when to move and when to wait. God is training your instincts to align with His timing. This is not hesitation, it is precision. God is also disturbing generational patterns through you. What was normalized before you is being challenged now. Cycles of fear, limitation, and compromise are losing their power. God is raising you as a point of interruption, someone through whom a new standard is established. This process requires courage because breaking patterns invites criticism, but obedience to God always outweighs the approval of people. God is strengthening your spine so you can stand even when misunderstood. You are learning that faith is not passive. Faith moves, faith decides, faith obeys. Faith remains steady even when the ground feels unstable. God is cultivating an active trust in you, one that does not wait for certainty before taking steps. The disturbance is also refining your prayer life. You are no longer praying to escape discomfort. You are praying to align with purpose. You are no longer asking God to remove challenges. You are asking Him to reveal direction. This shift deepens your connection with Him. God disturbs atmospheres to teach you endurance. Endurance is not about surviving hardship. It is about remaining faithful through it. It is about holding to truth when emotions fluctuate. It is about continuing to trust when outcomes are delayed. There will come a moment where the noise settles, when clarity begins to emerge, when the pieces align. You will look back and recognize that the disturbance was not random. It was precise. Every shift served a purpose. Every delay protected you. Every challenge shaped you. Until that moment, remain attentive, remain grounded, remain responsive. God is still adjusting, still aligning, still preparing. The atmosphere is not against you. It is being rearranged for you. There is also a hidden mercy in the disturbance that many overlook. God disturbs the atmosphere to prevent you from settling for less than what He ordained. If everything remained calm, you might never question whether the ground beneath you was strong enough to carry your future. Comfort can lull a person into quiet compromise, but disturbance awakens discernment. God loves you too deeply to let you stay where your potential is underutilized. In this season, God is training your spiritual endurance. Not endurance that merely survives, but endurance that remains steady, focused, and faithful under pressure. This kind of endurance does not come from ease. It is forged in moments when you must choose trust without reassurance, obedience without explanation, and faith without visible confirmation. God is strengthening your inner resolve so that when greater responsibility comes, you will not collapse under its weight. Some of you are realizing that God is disturbing your emotional attachments. You are no longer able to cling to people, plaque, ease, or outcomes the way you once did. This is not emotional coldness, it is emotional maturity. God is teaching you to love without dependency, to care without control, and to invest without losing your center. When your heart is anchored in God, you can love freely without fear of loss. God is also refining your response to adversity. Before, frustration may have led to anger, delay may have led to doubt, and silence may have led to insecurity. Now God is shaping a different response. You are learning to pause, to reflect, to pray, and to move with intention rather than impulse. This shift is evidence that the disturbance is producing wisdom. There's a sacred recalibration happening within you. God is aligning your desires with His purpose. What once felt urgent now feels optional. What once felt optional now feels essential. This is not confusion, it is clarity forming beneath the surface. God often adjusts desire before He adjusts direction. When God disturbs the atmosphere, He also removes spiritual complacency. He awakens hunger for truth, for meaning, for alignment. This hunger is not dissatisfaction with life, it is dissatisfaction with superficiality. God is drawing you deeper, beyond surface level belief, into lived conviction. Some of you are being prepared to carry influence you have not yet imagined. Influence requires restraint, wisdom, and humility. God is teaching you when not to speak, when not to react, and when not to reveal everything you know. Silence in this season is not weakness, it is strategy. God trusts you with restraint before He trusts you with reach. God is also dismantling false timelines you imposed on yourself. You believe certain things had to happen by a certain age, in a certain order, through certain means. When those timelines collapse, it feels like failure, but it is not failure, it is freedom. God operates beyond human schedules. What He prepares outside your timeline will surpass what you rushed within it. The disturbance may also be confronting unhealed areas within you. Pain you buried, disappointment you minimized, wounds you learned to live with. God does not expose these to shame you, but to heal you. Unaddressed pain can distort perception and hinder purpose. God heals what He reveals. In this shifting atmosphere, God is teaching you to walk by conviction rather than consensus. You will not always be understood. Agreement will not always come, but clarity will. When God speaks, He does not seek permission from the crowd. He seeks obedience from the willing. You are also learning that faith is not proven when things go right, but when you remain faithful when things are unsettled. Anyone can trust God in clarity. Trust becomes powerful in uncertainty. God is developing a faith in you that does not collapse under unanswered questions. The disturbance is sharpening your discernment of timing. You are learning that delay is not denial and silence is not absence. God often works quietly while you wait loudly. What seems still on the surface is active beneath it. God is also adjusting how you define success. Success is no longer about speed, recognition, or applause. It becomes about alignment, obedience, and integrity. This shift protects you from burnout and pride. God is teaching you to measure progress by faithfulness, not by comparison. Some of you are realizing that God is disturbing your comfort so He can awaken your courage. Courage does not emerge in ease. It emerges when you must act without certainty, speak without assurance of agreement, and move without guaranteed results. God is forming courage that does not depend on conditions. This season is teaching you to remain grounded when emotions fluctuate. You are learning that feelings are indicators, not authorities. God's truth remains steady even when emotions rise and fall. This stability is essential for what lies ahead. God is also restoring reverence within you. Reverence for His timing, His wisdom, His authority. Familiarity can dull reverence, but disturbance restores awe. You are remembering that God is not manageable, predictable, or confined. He is intentional, sovereign, and precise. The atmosphere is shifting not only around you, but within you. Old fears are losing their voice. Old doubts are losing their grip. Old limitations are losing their influence. What once intimidated you now feels smaller because your trust in God has grown larger. Stay attentive, stay surrendered, stay responsive. God is not finished shaping this season. The disturbance is still working, still aligning, still preparing the ground for what is about to emerge. There is a sacred tension that appears when God is about to move you from knowing about Him to truly knowing Him. This tension is not meant to break you, it is meant to deepen you. God is shifting you from borrowed conviction to personal conviction, from second-hand belief to lived trust. When the atmosphere is disturbed, inherited faith is no longer sufficient. You must encounter God for yourself, not through the experiences of others, but through obedience in your own journey. God is also teaching you to recognize His hand even when it does not look dramatic. Not every divine move comes with spectacle. Sometimes God works through subtle realignments, quiet withdrawals, and unseen redirections. The atmosphere changes not because God is absent, but because He is intentional. He is rearranging things quietly so that when the outcome appears, it is undeniable. Some of you are in a season where God is redefining what dependence looks like. You have learned to depend on skills, strategies, and structure. None of these are wrong, but God does not allow them to replace Him, so He disturbs the atmosphere to remind you that wisdom without surrender becomes pride, and strength without humility becomes fragile. God is calling you back to the source. This disturbance is also purifying your motives. You begin to ask yourself why you pursue what you pursue, why you want what you want. God is refining desire so that ambition does not overpower obedience. Purpose without purity becomes dangerous. God protects you by aligning your motives before He expands your reach. There is also a refining of patience happening. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active trust. It is continuing to do what is right when outcomes are delayed. God is teaching you to remain consistent when rewards are unseen. This kind of patience builds credibility in the unseen realms long before recognition appears in the visible. God disturbs atmospheres to awaken responsibility for your inner life. You become aware that what you allow within you eventually shapes what unfolds around you. Thoughts, attitudes, and intentions matter. God is calling you to guard your inner environment as carefully as you navigate the external one. Some of you are learning to let go of the need to explain yourself. When God is leading, explanation is not always required. Approval is not always given. God is strengthening your ability to stand quietly in truth without defending every decision. Confidence rooted in Him does not seek constant validation. God is also disturbing your atmosphere to reveal strength you did not know you possessed. Strength does not announce itself in ease. It reveals itself in endurance. You are discovering resilience that was dormant until pressure activated it. This strength will serve you well in future assignments. In this season, God is teaching you discernment over reaction. Not every challenge requires a response. Not every criticism deserves attention. God is sharpening your awareness so that you conserve energy for what truly matters. This discernment preserves peace even in unsettled environments. The disturbance is also shaping your integrity. Integrity is who you remain when conditions change. God is forming consistency within you so that success does not alter your character and pressure does not compromise your values. Integrity creates trust, and trust invites responsibility. God is preparing you to handle clarity without arrogance. When insight comes, humility must remain. When understanding increases, reverence must deepen. God ensures that revelation does not outpace character. The disturbance slows you down so growth can mature. Some of you are experiencing a renewed sensitivity to God's presence. What once felt distant now feels near. What once felt confusing now feels aligned. This sensitivity is the fruit of surrender. When you stop resisting the disturbance, you begin to recognize God's guidance within it. God is also disturbing cycles of self-reliance. You are learning that asking for help is not weakness. Trusting God fully requires admitting limits. God's strength is most evident when you acknowledge your need for Him. This season is teaching you to move with wisdom rather than urgency. Urgency pushes prematurely. Wisdom waits attentively. God is refining your pace so you do not outrun your preparation or lag behind your opportunity. The atmosphere is shifting because God is aligning timing. What comes next will require precision, and precision requires patience. God never rushes what He values. He invests time when He intends longevity. You are also learning to recognize peace that remains even when answers do not arrive immediately. This peace is not emotional calm, it is spiritual assurance. It comes from knowing that God is present, active, and faithful regardless of visible outcomes. God is disturbing the atmosphere to teach you to listen more than you speak, to observe more than you assume, and to trust more than you analyze. This posture allows wisdom to grow and error to decrease. Remain steady, remain open, remain obedient. God is still shaping, still aligning, still preparing. The disturbance has purpose, and the purpose is producing something within you that ease never could.